Presentation number 2. UN 2030 Population Control. It's an agenda. Pay attention. Are you guys ready to read? It's time to read, everyone. Turn off your radio, turn off your TV, turn off your mainstream media. Step away from social media. Other than this social media, of course, that you're on. If you don't know, how can you stop it? Like G.I. Joe said, knowing is half the battle. Okay, here we go. Introduction. Number 1, introduction. Population 2030.
Everywhere is freaks and hearings, nights and ferries. Tell me where is sanity? Tax the rich, feed the poor.
Okay, here we go. Introduction. Discussion of population and sustainable development. Once we're dominated by a concern that world population growth would eventually exceed the planet's carrying capacity, in particular with respect to the availability of natural resources. Especially since the mid-20th century, a time of unprecedented global population growth, many worried about humans' capacity to produce enough food to sustain the growing numbers of people, particularly in Africa and Asia, where population growth was the fastest and food security already tenuous. Between 1950 and 2015, however, the world's population nearly tripled, from 2.5 billion people to 7.3 billion people. And the direst predictions of decades earlier have not come to pass. Largely owing to new technologies that have enhanced the efficiency of global food production to a degree previously thought impossible. Your saviors, ladies and gentlemen, the United Nations. Although the global rate of population has increased, the rate of population increase has slowed considerably. The world is still expected to add around 83 million people in 2015. Anyone born around 2015 should be ashamed of yourself. Okay, so around the global rate of population increase has slowed considerably. The world is still expected to add around 83 million shameful, disgusting, absolutely gross 83 million people in 2015. A cancer, I tell you, upon the planet Earth. Lessons of the past several decades have spurred an evolution in concerns about continued population growth, which today tend to focus less specifically on the volume of food production and more broadly on the numerous pressures exerted by growing populations on the natural environment, land, forests, biodiversity, ground patterns. Because the ground seems pretty flat. Oceans, also flat. Air quality and climate. Through unsustainable production and consumption patterns, and there's like a little reference there.
Always private.
Okay.
On the verb.
they're throwing the and we'll look at all those references we'll look at. So generally speaking, the human impact on environment is determined by three intersecting factors. Number one, population growth. And number two, economic growth, which together shape production and consumption demands. And number three, technological advancements, which influence the efficiency and impact of the consumption of resources. According to the United Nations median projection, they got that projection, you guys. Okay. The world's population will grow to around 8.5 billion in 2030. Oh no! No! The largest, the target date, oh my god. There's a target date for the 17 Sustainable Development Goals outlined in 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The degree to which that population growth will stress natural resources and harm the environment will thus depend on the consumption and production patterns that accompany population growth and economic growth over that period. And number two, success in developing and implementing the technological advances needed to improve efficiency and reduce humanity's global environment footprint. Predicting economic growth and technological change is notoriously difficult. B-I-G notoriously, like big notoriously. Even over the short term, the country level and regional level forecasts of gross domestic product (GDP) produced by the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. Oh no! Let me repeat that. Is this something Simon has been saying for the last 9 years? Oh yeah, it is, huh? So the country level and regional level forecasts of gross domestic product, the GDP, produced by the World Bank and IMF, extend no more than a few years into the future and are subject to a high degree of uncertainty. Oh no! The World Bank, look at that. They made that report in 2014. The IMF made it in 2015. In stark contrast, and by stark, I'm not talking about, the Marvel Comics Stark family. In stark contrast, the near future of world population is relatively certain. Yeah, they're pretty certain about it. They know what's going to happen. This is because the size and age structure of the population over the next 15 years are largely the result of demographic processes, particularly fertility and mortality. Okay, that have already taken place in the past. Consequently, between now and 2030, we can predict with confidence which populations will grow and which will decline. Sorry, my dog is very protective of me. The smallest noise she hears, she jumps. Okay, so consequently, between now and 2030, we can predict with confidence which populations will grow and which will decline, as well as their age structures, and to a lesser extent, their spatial distributions. Shifts in each of these demographic characteristics shape the demand for the goods and services that are critical to the progress of the sustainable development, such as healthcare, education, employment, and social protection, as well as the production and consumption patterns that characterize the economy. While population growth poses challenges to sustainable development, of demographic changes anticipated to take place over the coming years may also present opportunities to facilitate the financing and delivery of services such as health and education, and to accelerate economic growth and poverty reduction. The demographic dividend, for example, describes the period of time following sustained fertility decline. How would they know fertility will decline, everyone? Think about that. Outside of this document that I'm reading for you all, how would they know? Continuing. During which economic growth may be accelerated because the working age population grows as a share of the total population. Trends in urbanization represent another potential development opportunity arising from demographic processes, since cities offer economies of scale to supply infrastructure and basic services to a large population at much lower costs that would be required to reach the same number of people dispersed over rural areas. Do you guys understand what that means? Again, outside of this article we're reading, do you guys comprehend what that means? They would rather have people in dense large cities, so they could brainwash you guys all a lot easier. That's exactly what they just fucking said in this article from the United Nations. Okay? It's cheaper. It's cheaper for the bankers. And easier. So, going back to that, let's reread that. The demographic dividend, for example, describes a period of time following sustained fertility decline, during which economic growth may be accelerated because of the working age population grows as a share of the total population. Trends in urbanization represent another potential development opportunity arising from demographic processes, since cities offer economies of scale to supply infrastructure and basic services to a large population at a much lower cost that would be required to reach the same number of people dispersed over rural areas. Understanding the present and future demographic dynamics particular to each country can inform development planning and policy making, identifying areas where programs must be scaled up. See, look, I'm a field engineer who knows how to read contracts. There are different definitions. Must, shall, probably. Now, must is not shall, It's not yet shall, but it is must. It's a requirement at this point. Okay, let's go back to that. Understanding the present and future demographic dynamics particular to each country can inform development planning and policy making. That means policy making means police. Like they're making reasons to police you. Policy making. They're making reasons to police you. Okay? Understanding the present and future demographic dynamics particular to each country can inform development planning and policy making. Identifying areas where programs must be scaled up to reach growing numbers of people in need. How do they know what we need? As well as areas where the shifting demographic profile offers opportunities to accelerate progress in some areas of sustainable development. This report examines the United Nations population projections for countries and regions for the period of 2015 through 2030. The implementation period of the 2030 agenda. Again, I have to reiterate, according to them, according to the United Nations, according to the facts, okay, right now we are currently under an implementation of a broad agenda, which is totally not only about population control, but also a depopulation policy making in the making. They are going to everyone used to talk so much crap about China. You can't have more than two, two or three kids, and that just kept moving around. They had us believing all this whole time under statistical mathematics, which is totally theoretical crap, that Americans had 2.5 children. You can have not 2.5 children. You either have 2 children or you have 3 children. There's no half of a child. Okay, that was a total misrepresentation of reality throughout all these years, in order to conform everyone to accept all of these policies. You have no idea they are making these policies. You are following mainstream media. Until we read actually what the United Nations is trying to accomplish, you really are ignorant to the facts. Okay? Which is why we are reading this right now. I've explained enough. I've been keeping up on all this social engineering for years. Everyone knows this already. Okay? Okay, I've been reading all of this forever. In my mind, it's been forever I've been reading this. Okay? And a lot of sheeple don't seem to comprehend it. They may be able to understand some of these concepts, but they cannot wrap their entire minds around this because they have embraced a depopulation ideology, which has been part of the indoctrination since World War I. To be honest, since the French Revolution. If you guys don't know what the French Revolution is, I suggest you all read about it, because this is why they made this. This is why the central bankers had to make this. Last thing they need is another French Revolution type of event. Okay? So let's continue. Understanding the present and the future demographic dynamics, particularly to each country, can inform development planning and policy making. Identifying areas where programs must be scaled up to reach growing numbers of people in need, as well as areas where the shifting demographic profile offers opportunity to accelerate progress in some areas of sustainable development. While at a good tragedy go to waste, right, guys? So continuing, this report examines the United Nations population projections for countries and regions for the period between 2015 through 2030, the implementation period of the 2030 Agenda, in order to identify the coming challenges to and opportunities for sustainable development associated with demographic trends over the near term. It discusses the projected numbers of births, children of primary school age, adolescents of youth, women of reproductive age, older persons and existing dwellers. By considering these demographic trends within the context of each country's existing capacity to meet the needs of its population, as assessed primarily through progress achieved toward the MDGs. I get targets. I've already explained the MDGs. They're basically where the SDGs came from. The SDGs are basically an extension of the MDGs. This report identifies where efforts must be intensified to expand basic services to growing numbers of people, as well as where population factors are likely to present opportunities to accelerate development progress. Moreover, this report compares recent population growth to trends in carbon emissions and energy sustainability. The report concludes with a summary of the demographic priorities facing governments, not one government, governments as plural, as they prepare to accommodate their future populations, which for many countries differ from the present, not only in size, but also in the age structures and spatial distributions that shape their opportunities and needs. I'm going to leave it on there. You guys think about that last sentence. It's a pretty long one. Let's go over it one more time. The report concludes with a summary of the demographic priorities facing governments as they prepare to accommodate their future populations, which for many countries differ from the present, not only in size, but also in the age structures and spatial distributions that shape their opportunities and needs. Do you guys, even science bro,